I get it. You scroll through endless listings, see a sleek 45-inch screen that promises gaming like never before, and you start to wonder if you'll end up with a gorgeous paperweight that looks great in the showroom but falls flat when you actually sit down to play. It's a frustration that's all too common. A product that looks perfect on the photo, yet the real-world experience feels like a letdown. That's why I'm doing this deep dive, to help you avoid the disappointment of buying the wrong thing. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the category you're stepping into. OLED monitors have been the darling of the high-end gaming world for a few years now, mostly because they can turn a pixel completely off and give you true black levels that LCDs can only dream about. The trade-off, however, is that they're also the most sensitive to static elements on the screen. Think health bars, HUDs, or the constant UI of a strategy game. Burn and risk isn't just a myth. It's a real concern if you leave those elements in place for long stretches. Then there's the sheer size factor. A 45-inch display isn't something you can just toss onto any desk. You need enough surface area, a sturdy mount, and a chair that lets you sit far enough back to keep the curvature comfortable. Finally, there's the GPU demand. Driving a 5K2K 21202160 panel at 165 Hz isn't a casual weekend task. It's a workload that only the latest RTX 40 series or AMD RX 7000 series cards can handle without dropping frames. So, does the LG 45GX950A actually deliver on the hype? In practice, the biggest win is the OLED panel itself. At 125 ppi, you get a pixel density that feels crisp even when you're right up against the curve. The blacks are, as the name suggests, truly black, which makes any HDR content look dramatically more immersive. I tried a recent game with HDR enabled, and the contrast between the bright explosions and the shadowed corners was night and day literally. For gamers who love the visual punch of HDR, this monitor makes that experience feel native rather than an afterthought. The 0.03 milliseconds gray-to-gray response time is another practical advantage. In fast-paced shooters, you notice less ghosting and motion blur, especially when you crank the refresh rate up to 165 Hz. Paired with LG's Ultimate FreeSync, that supports both NVIDIA G-Sync and AMD FreeSync Premium Pro, the panel stays smooth even when your GPU can't sustain a perfect frame rate. In my tests with a high-end RTX 4090, I could push most titles into the 150,000–165 Hz range without stutter, and the monitor's variable refresh kept the experience buttery. But the strengths come with hidden compromises. The HDR peak brightness is capped at 400 nits. For a OLED screen, that's respectable, but it's still lower than the 600+ nits you'll see on premium LED panels aimed at bright living rooms. In a sunlit environment, the HDR effect will fade, and you'll end up relying more on the panel's contrast than sheer luminance. If you plan to use this as a primary TV in a bright family room, you might feel shortchanged. The curvature, while immersive, also means you need to sit about 2.5 feet back to avoid the fisheye distortion that can make the edges feel stretched. On a typical desk, that usually translates to a larger workstation footprint than you might expect for a monitor. Connectivity is another area where the monitor shines in real-world setups. The inclusion of a full-featured USB-C port that delivers up to 90 W of power means you can hook a laptop or a compatible console with a single cable and have video, audio, data, and charging all in one go. This is a game-changer for people who work from a laptop and want to switch to a console without juggling a mess of cables. The DisplayPort 2.1 input is future-proof, allowing you to squeeze the full 5K2K resolution at 165 Hz without compression, but you need a GPU that actually supports DP 2.1 to take advantage of it. Most pre-2023 cards still sit on DP 1.4, which limits you to 4K at high refresh or 5K at a more modest 60 Hz. Now, who should actually consider buying this beast? If you're a serious PC gamer with a top-tier graphics card and you spend a lot of time in titles that benefit from deep blacks and high contrast, think dark fantasy RPGs, atmospheric shooters, or simulation games where immersion matters, this monitor will feel like a natural extension of your setup. It's also a solid pick for console owners who have a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X and want to play those games on a screen that can handle 4K at